actually requires a 2-week public notice. That's the only thing we're trying to comply with. But because you already have, it seems to me, everything you would typically get from the engineer after the resolution, you are essentially doing the first step, that is a resolution designating the need for an improvement and requesting the engineer to do it in advance, making a decision on which one of those two to do. Only because you happen to have engineer specifications in hand, because we ask engineer level to do them in advance. So, and we obviously don't want anybody to set it aside after you guys, if you're able to arrive at a unanimous decision because, there wasn't a 2-week notice period. We're not, this has been a long time, we're not going to put it subject to that kind of a challenge.
Now, should we take and just vote on each, like if we want a cul-de-sac, just make a vote either on a cul-de-sac and then make a vote on the T turnaround?
You can do it any way you want. You can talk about it, get some sense, and then somebody has to make a motion as it relates to one option or the other. I don't know how else to.
If you assign a number to the resolutions, then you could discuss which option you want. Assign the number.
Let me do this. Might I make a suggestion? Only because, A, to take it out of anybody else's domain. This is a suggestion, it's not a requirement. Since the T turnaround was the first thing talked about, 15 years ago, I would suggest you vote on it first, vote on the next one next. Obviously, if you get a unanimous one on the T turnaround, you're done. If you don't, vote on that.
Well, then I'd make a motion that we vote on the T turnaround.
Well, actually, how you're going to have to, somebody's got to make a motion, if somebody's interested in it, that resolution be adopted. Somebody will have to second, and then you vote.
I'll second the motion to discuss the T turnaround.
All right, so motion second, call for a vote.
I believe we can have
Discussion.
discussion.
I'm sorry.
This is going to take a while. It's 4 pages. Do you want to turn that down? Who's that big knob on the right? All right. Finally, this board finds itself at the hopeful conclusion of what has been termed as the never-ending Cooper Road dead-end story. This long story began thereabouts 1995 when the landowner went through the county to have a T-shaped turnaround installed. This installation should have occurred late last millennium by the Board of Trustees, including Trustee Watkins, who still sits on this board today. This story is not only about this first ball dropping, but continuous status quo of balls dropping one after another, year after year of illegal road improvements, followed by the same. During my term going on now 3.5 years as sworn township trustee, I have seen and witnessed blatant abuse of power, refusals to read, listen, or follow the clear laws outlined in the Ohio Revised Code. This Cooperrider dead-end saga is no different and exemplifies the old school favoritism and entitlement mentality of the majority of this board. I've now fully researched the many years of this sad story with factual research, along with opinions of residents, affected mostly by changes made on Cooperrider Road. Up until this most recent on-site meeting, July 16th at 9 a.m., there have been many occasions where I've not been permitted the opportunity to discuss the topic on the record at monthly meetings. As a matter of fact, there was even a formal resolution put forth by President Van Buren, Trustee Watkins, and supported by the fiscal officer to not discuss Cooperrider Road for months. This would not be a resolution that could be adhered to by any law, for the residents should never be stifled by what they choose to bring or attempt to bring to the table. Another outrageous resolution was pushed by the majority of the board to force resident Will Kern to put the turnaround back the way it was. This completely arbitrary, undefined, and capricious resolution only exemplifies the stymie approach of township government employed by the current board majority. The story also includes Trustee Van Buren calling the sheriff out to the property for the mute point of of resident Curran placing landscape rocks outside of the roadway on his personal property. The county prosecutor recently addressed this by saying something to the effect that you didn't go to jail. The sheriff should never have been called in the first place. Public beratings and harassment by Van Buren Watkins towards the Curran family served as the old boy style of accusing, tried and convicted on the street by what is commonly now called Watkins law. Watkins claims Curran is a liar and a thief, clearly on the record. The Curran family
Hey, we don't
indeed
want to hear that.
is owned and apologized.
I'm leaving, I don't want to hear it.
We don't want to hear
I
nothing
don't want to hear
about
it.
it.
They likely will never get one from Van Buren or Watkins. However, I apologize here and now.
They don't want to hear it.
We're discussing,
I've got the floor.
we're discussing what we're going to.
I've got the floor, Mr. Watkins.
This is ridiculous.
Not being able to do a darn thing about it. I'm sorry, Mr. Kern.
You just run your mouth and don't say nothing.
I have the floor, and until I get the floor, I'll remain silent.
You tell Sandy, throw him my phone. Bring it up.
Nobody deserves to be treated as you have by elected officials. You're sworn to follow the law and are supposed to be public servants. At this time, I also want to thank Mr. Kern for not pursuing a very clear and documented case of the Ohio Sunshine Laws being violated by the majority of this board.
We don't want to hear nothing out of your mouth.
This situation was brought to my attention, and I did present all the facts to the county prosecutor. Thank you for not pursuing action against the officials that did clearly violate the laws, and others that chose to ignore prosecuting. The fact that the Ohio Sunshine Law violations were not pursued by the county prosecutor or by a resident do not change the facts that the Cooper Rider Road turnaround issues were even harder to resolve due to the multiple violations of the law. The general public has no idea what this entire saga has entailed. Fast forward now to 2008, when the majority of residents of Cooper Rider Road presented this board with a list of signatures requesting the township proceed forward with the 1995 resolution to adopt and finalize a T-shaped turnaround. Basically, I am the only one at this table that did not ignore this documented request. Why should two trustees put their own desires without sound reason before the wish of the people they are elected to serve? Trustee Watkins and the remainder of the then board in 1995 had done what they were supposed to do, then the cost of the T could easily have been the burden of the then landowner putting in the request. Today we sit in a position of no formal petition. Therefore, the cost for major road improvement at the end of Cooper Rider Road will continue to be all the financial burden of township taxpayers. On more than one occasion, I have moved forward to proceed with the desire of the people to finalize the sufficient T-shaped turnaround. I was never offered a second to the motion to discuss at the table. However, Watkins and Van Buren went on to discuss it anyway, indicating fully that a T-turnaround would never be an option. The only continuous conversations at the table from Van Buren and Watkins have been to pursue a full cul-de-sac at this dead-end road. Up till this day, there are still only two elected officials pushing for the unwanted, expensive, full 90-degree offset cul-de-sac on dead-end Cooper Rider Road. A motion was made and second to put in a cul-de-sac by the majority of the board without the required specifications from the county engineer. This went right to vote without the opportunity of basic cost facts and specifications. I have seen what this board does when creating open-ended imperatives with no defined limitations. As long as I have a vote on this board, the status quo will not continue as the norm. Nevertheless, the vote was taken and failed due to the requirement of having anonymous 3 vote in favor. The never-ending story could have and rightfully should have ended with the result of the road staying just as it is today. Unfortunately, the majority of the board, along with